It's David with Be in Health.
And, well, I defer to the beautiful flower over here.
Pastor Donna.
And Dr.
Who are
Henry Wright to some people, Biscuit to my friends. Good morning to you.
Well, thanks for joining us here. We have a very interesting topic
Yes, we
for
do.
Facebook Live this morning. It's been a couple weeks since we've done one of these. We were doing these out on the road, and those were fun, but we haven't done kind of a discussing a topic here in a couple weeks. Typically, we talk about disease and roots of disease, and that might be a thread in this at some point. But on the Overcomers Community Facebook page that we have, somebody asked a question about personality tests. In corporate America, these are becoming very popular to help place people in the right positions, if you will, to their skill set, identifying strengths and weaknesses, amongst them so they can fit best somewhere. There's also these profile tests there in the church. There's even tests on spiritual gifts that you can take to understand which spiritual gifts you have based on your personality.
Do say.
That's scary. Where's the Holy Spirit in this?
We're going to get there.
We're good. Okay.
Hopefully.
I thought he decided.
So this is a topic that, Dr. Wright, you've actually taught quite extensively on, not in some of your newer teachings, but there's a resource we have here, Personality Misprofiles. It's a book.
Oh, wait. Let me
So
get mine too.
We all have a copy.
There it is.
This might be something you want to pick up.
Might be something you need to know.
It might be something you need to know. Absolutely.
I like it says in the very front page, have you been stereotyped?
Have you been stereotyped? That's
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
I want to read the back.
Okay.
We talked
Sure,
about that. I want to read the back just to kind of get us started here.
Good.
To the book Personality Misprofiles. It says, far too often people are bound to an identity or a label. That's a big label. That's a big
Label.
word. Mm-hmm. The Christian church is busy with seminars trying to help their members understand themselves and each other by their personality type. They are being asked to conform to an image that is being observed in them. If you are trying to live up to someone's misprofile of you, you need to be released from it. Not just from leaders and teachers, but also from parents and friends and anyone else that has labeled you. You may have labeled yourself. You must be released. Mm-hmm. It is possible you may have been misprofiled. You may be struggling to live up to a false label assigned to you. Personality misprofiles will help you get back to the way God saw you from the foundation of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I just had an incredible case history in the Bible just come to me as you were speaking.
All right, let's hear it.
This is a big one. You got a guy named Moses. He had some issues. He had a little anger issues and got in trouble and ran for his life to hide from the Pharaoh. Hid out in the backside of the desert for, 40 years or more? And hiding in fear. Then one day there was a voice in the burning bush. Said, Moses, I have a job for you. You're going to go confront the Pharaoh and tell him, let my people go. And so this guy that God chose, full of fear, hiding out from the Pharaoh in the backside of the desert for all those years.
Oh no. I did
something.
Oh, we're back.
We're back.
Are we
We're good.
back?
Sorry.
Yeah, we're back on. Sorry, I was
I don't know what we
checking
lost.
something.
We
Oh,
glitched.
lost
It's
there.
okay.
Had a glitch. Hey, a glitch.
Back.
Okay. You may have a glitch, but you're not a glitch.
Right.
Okay. And this Moses guy is called, he becomes the pastor of one of the largest gatherings of God's people in the history of this planet, 2.5 million, I'm told, on that journey from Egypt to the Promised Land, and he couldn't even speak for himself. His brother had to speak for him. Now, he would flunk the front door test of every church in the world right now. But there was something in the man that God saw. And that's the big question here today.
That is, there's a story that you tell in this book because it was actually going off of Moses' story. It's actually on page 3. let's see here. All right, it says this. We had someone here who was a pastor of a church. This was an existing pastor.
Right.
He was pastor of a church. He went back home and attended a seminar for pastors in his denomination. In their teaching, they outlined psychological profiles for pastoral leadership. It was said the proper or preferred type of man to be set in leadership should be an extrovert, because introverted people would naturally follow extroverts. During the course of this seminar, they did psychological profiles on their own ministers. When they were finished, they determined that this person should be an assistant pastor or a deacon, and another person should be the leader.
Wow.
There is no scriptural basis that makes being an extrovert criteria for being a leader of God's people. In fact, many of God's greatest leaders were introverts. Mm-hmm. The pastor I'm talking about is an existing pastor who has been told that because he meets the classification of introvert, it would be better for him to be reclassified as an assistant pastor or deacon. He was told he should be removed from his pastoral duties.
Wow.
I'm remembering
I'm remembering who that was.
I'm remembering also an article, this will be interesting, that Christianity Today had a big article on who makes the best pastors. And they said those individuals that make the best pastors have a type A personality.
It's another label.
Another label, to have a type A personality. Mm-hmm. Well, in the DSM-5 manual of psychiatric disorders of psychiatry, a type A personality is considered a mental disorder. Now, the characteristics of a type A personality is aggressiveness, irritability, hard to get along with, outspoken, and difficult to live with.
And that's supposed to be a pastor?
That's the best pastor, according to
horrible.
Christianity Today. And that went to all the pastors that take and subscribe to this magazine.
There's a whole lot wrong with that.
Is there a whole lot wrong with
There's
that?
a whole lot wrong with that.
Yeah.
Well, and you said...
I have another story.
Go for it, yeah.
I have another story. Mm-hmm. This isn't about this, but in my younger years of my journey of working for corporations, I interviewed with a large national lumber yard that put me through this type of profiling, only to inform me that I didn't have the psychological profiling necessary to be one of their general managers.
That's funny.
So I I left that and I applied for other major, bigger national organization of lumberyards, who flew me to Atlanta to be interviewed, hired me immediately, and I became a marketing manager for a very large lumber chain and was very successful in it.
Wow.
So one person deprofiled me, another one said, you're the guy we're looking for. So you have to be careful, don't you?
You do.
God may be looking for you, but men may have excluded you.
Yeah.
God may be looking for you.
Big word. God may be looking for you, but you may be living in the shadow of those who have excluded you.
You know, May 22nd, you have a conference or a teaching coming up called "God Wants You."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, but I don't have a degree. Have you seen anybody with degrees create a revival in the past 200 years in the world? I'll tell you, there's a degree that God wants in you.
You do have a degree. I'm trying to figure out what are you talking about?
Yes, I have a degree, but that's for men.
Oh, I see.
Before men decided I needed a degree.
Yeah.
For men.
For men.
Right.
God authenticated me for 30 years before with signs and wonders because the degree I had then was hot. Hot, hot, hot all the time. No lukewarm guy here.
Nope. Absolutely not.
No, there's no lukewarmness there. That's
not part of your profile.
No.
It's lukewarm.
I have aged nicely.
I don't know quite what to think about all this kind of, because to me it's like stereotyping.
It is.
I've I've never had one of these tests for myself necessarily, but when I looked at some of the testing that people do for strengths and weaknesses, I mean, I can kind of get an idea if you're looking for a manager, if they're good under pressure, that kind of thing. But I would think that would come out in an interview, and it would also come out in like possibly some just watching what they're doing. I think that to come right out of the gate with some kind of a profiling test or whatever, I just think that's a little premature. And then it's limiting, I think.
There's another problem in this. They're doing psychological profiling based on success.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
That's number one. Mm-hmm. They have a image of success that they profiled. But what they're not taking into account is the iniquity that's in the person that's hidden. That could manifest. Look around in the news every day at the great leaders and the great business people and all that have all the accolades of success. Look at the stuff that's in them that's not of God. Sin, iniquity, licentiousness, the list goes on. So who's doing the iniquity sin test as part of the profiling?
Well, one of the things about those tests too that I think about is you're the one answering those questions. Somebody's not answering them for you. And, if you can read between the lines on the questions, well, I don't want to be seen as this. But I want to be like that. Let me just kind of notch me up a little bit here.
Exactly.
I mean, you can kind of form it to what you want it to be.
My faith is I'm going to be that.
Yeah, your faith could be that, but maybe you're not there yet,
Right.
So... maybe these are nothing more than face statements, but
wouldn't that be a fabricated personality on your part to do that?
Yeah, it would be.
Probably.
It would be.
That's not honesty.
But one of the things that mankind's really big into is labeling. They just want everything to be labeled. They want to know what box everybody fits in, what file compartment. Everything is labeling. I'm a liberal. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I mean, where's the people in this? I mean, I just wonder, it's like, why does everybody want to be labeled? The only thing I think I want to be labeled for is that I'm a believer, the end.
Well, it's like going to grocery stores.
Do I even want to be labeled?
Or packaged.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I have a thought. Can I share it?
Yeah. No.
Sure.
See what you think of it? No.
Yeah.
Stop. We can't share it, David. Of course you can share
Well, when you're labeled, even though that it may be bondage, in some ways it's comfortable because there's no process of change. Okay, I'm labeled as this is what I am.
Yeah, live
I know
with
my parameters. I know what I'm not, what I am, and nobody's asking me to step up to do this, that, or the other, and here's my nice box.
Yeah.
And there's no change required. There's no change necessary. There's no growing up. There's no uncomfortableness.
There's no responsibility past your box.
I don't know if that's why everybody likes a label, but I could see that being a possibility.
Well, sometimes being comfortable in your labeling is a place of safety.
Well, that's what I think he's alluding to. Yeah.
It requires no faith.
No faith, yeah.
It's a status quo issue.
Yeah.
Well, I think that labeling in any realm, it's a limitation. You can't get past that spot, I know that for myself, I'm sure that back in my early days as a young woman, I was pretty messed up in my decision making. I made bad choices, I had reasons, I think justifiable reasons, if you want to say it that way, why I made those choices, because I was so dysfunctional. But no one would have ever dreamed that I would have turned out the way I am. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, they spoke that I would never.
Yeah.
Okay. But I guess I just pushed past the labeling thing and just kept going and let God be the one drawing me out and becoming. When I think about Moses, not only was he an angered man, but he was also into false burden bearing. He decided he was going to handle the treatment of his brethren, the way he wanted to. So he had a lot of baggage. Mm-hmm. For him to be called to be the first really, like you said, the biggest gathering, I'm sure he didn't see it. And he came out of Pharaoh's household. Okay, he was the least qualified from a Hebrew standpoint. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But he was Seed of Shem.
Yes, he was.
Another person that was stereotyped, and in the early church age, many of the early church members never did accept this individual ever because of the atrocities he had done, which is the Apostle Paul. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He was a typical Hebrew jihadist.
Yes.
That's a reversal of thought.
Yeah.
In which he persecuted the early church, and he was responsible for putting to death even fathers and husbands in the great persecution of the early church. And when he was converted and became part of the movement, people remembered, and they stereotyped him, and they were afraid of him. And the Bible says they were afraid of him. And they didn't want to embrace him because they stereotyped him because of his past failures. But God saw something in him, past his failures, past his blindness, that took us right into one of the greatest apostles known to man. So, see, is it possible that people have branded you as a failure in your journey? I mean, you were talking about yourself.
Oh, yeah, I was definitely branded as one of those.
You know, I'm a preacher's kid that didn't always do what preacher's kids are supposed to do for 20 years.
Right, right.
So some people in my past branded me from my journey of not serving God.
Yeah.
And when I did give my life to God, and I had a radical change like Paul did, they still remembered the days when I wasn't a perfect preacher's kid.
Well, you know, I find really disturbing that churches, I mean, I kind of get it where secular corporations might want to use tests and stuff like that. I don't think it's right necessarily, but I find it really disturbing that churches would actually use that as a basis on deciding where people fit in the body. Because, like, where's the discernment of God in your leadership to see and look out into the sheepfold and see what you have? And where is the person's sovereignty and to be able to hear God for where they're going? Because those tests will limit you. I think you said earlier, which I thought was a good example. Smith Wigglesworth.
Smith Wigglesworth.
Yeah, he was a plumber.
He's a plumber.
Yeah.
So if he was to take a test on spiritual gifts today, he probably would have been placed in a helps, service, maintenance type of role, which we absolutely need, you know. But whether there would have been made room for him to do what he did in his journey and what God called him to do,
If you take a look at the 12 disciples that Jesus chose, not one of them qualified at the front desk of any church in modern world today.
Right.
None of them had a degree. The only one that had a degree later to come along was Paul, was expert in the law. He was a student of Gamaliel. So God used him because in understanding the law and the fulfillment of the law through Christ, he was an expert in defining it. So he brought us through that incredible movement from the Old Testament to the New Testament way of thinking, completeness in Christ, not as a type and a shadow, but as a fulfillment. And so you look at those, some people say, well, wouldn't the Lord have known about, who he was, that Judas would have been, and Peter would have. I think, in the wisdom of God, God wanted not to stereotype, but to show you the journey of men.
Yeah.
And how they either embraced, didn't embrace, failed, or succeeded, because that is a cross-section of mankind. Now, in the case of Judas, he didn't make it. In the case of Peter, he almost didn't make it, but he recovered himself. And so there's a lot to be learned about the journey of humans in the call of God, and how some embrace it, some don't embrace it, some follow through to completeness, some withdraw in incompleteness. But you can't stereotype even Christianity because of the failure of Christians in it.
Right.
That's a good point.
You know, as leaders, I mean, which we are in our local fellowship, it excites me to be able to watch the sheepfold and to see what gifts are becoming manifest in the different people. I mean, I love watching it happen. I love expecting something, to happen. The only way I can think that these tests would be beneficial to a body of believers, and leaders in particular, is because they don't give the people a platform, if you will, to be able to see what gifts they really do have. And to be able to be a confirming word to that person when they say, hey, I really think that perhaps maybe God's developing something in me, and I wanted to share that with you, and how I would like to be able to operate with your oversight or something of that nature. So that's the only way I can think that these tests could actually be beneficial. Not that I think they are at all, actually, but I'm just saying why they would use them.
Well, Possibly. You know, I think sometimes no one knows a person until you work with them.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
For
Yeah.
an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Or if you're able to see them in a church service, what they do with certain things, you know.
You know, the word says a man, a woman's gift shall make room for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the unfolding of the development of the call of God in a person. You can't predetermine it because there's variables that are undeterminable.
Mm-hmm.
Because even Paul said in his great discussion in Romans 7, he said, I want to do good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to give a positive confession.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to set myself as my own press reporter, to give my glowing report of who I think I am.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do good. But then Paul said, but the good that I wish I would do, I don't do it. And the evil that I hate, I do it. Oh, wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? So it gives you an accurate picture of the journey. Mm-hmm. Paul's honesty saved my life in Romans 7, because I could relate. And then Romans 6 came along, that it would help me understand the decision I had to make in that journey. Mm-hmm. So Paul was very therapeutic in his positioning, because he met us right where he was, a space cadet. Did I stereotype him?
Well, I think you were watching what he was before.
Yeah,
so.
but an apostle has to be sinless, right?
Well, let's hope not.
Or does he have to have a hatred for sin?
There you go.
Yeah.
See, Paul said, I hate it when I do this evil. So that comes down to, you can't stereotype him. You embrace his journey. I told people all the time, if you judge me by anything, you think you can judge me by how I speak, how I act, what I said. You can look at my past. The day that you think you know who Henry is, the Father, by His Spirit, is doing a perfecting work in my life every day.
Amen.
So don't write your book too fast. Mm-hmm. Because the time you write your book about my failures, I've moved on to success in Him. And there is why you don't stereotype people based on their past. You must make an allowance for people to be who God called them to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, even the prophet Jeremiah. I mean, you go to the prophet Jeremiah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy. He's called to be a great prophet, right? And all of a sudden, he's mully-grubbing about himself. I'm a child. I cannot speak. You made a mistake. Don't call me. Don't call me. I can't even speak. I'm a child. I can't understand. And the Lord said to him, excuse me, the day you open your mouth, it'll be my words, not yours.
Well, I was thinking about in Hebrews 11, you talked about faith earlier here, and that, we get in a label and things that requires no faith. And I was kind of running down and doing a list of these people, and these are kind of unimpressive people in the natural. Mm-hmm. You had Rahab a harlot, mm-hmm. you had Gideon a wimp, mm-hmm. you had David an adulterer, mm-hmm. you had Abraham a liar, mm-hmm. and these are the ones we're looking up to.
Right.
For the journey of faith.
Yes.
And so that's where faith can take you. Faith it says it can work righteousness.
You didn't stereotype Abraham as a liar. You said he had sin issues.
Yeah.
Well, they all did.
Well, they all did.
David had sin issues.
They all
sin
did.
issues.
So, but it's easy to go back and stereotype.
Say that they were those things. Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
So they had these issues in their life.
They did.
Right, but they still moved ahead.
They still moved ahead.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's where faith can take. Yeah, and that's just where, and that's there's no. One of the things that when I first got to be in health that I really appreciated was you would say this that God has faith for you. And I never heard that before.
Yeah.
But that really helped me see that He can see past the stuff, the iniquity and the sin, and that I could grow up and still be used, by God in whatever capacity, in spite of, hey, I don't have it all together.
Well, that's the beauty of the Word of God, though, because, God allowed in His Word to show the character defects, the sin, the whatever it was, to show that He saw something past that. That He saw something past that. And that just because they had these things in their lives, it did not limit limit them to where he wanted to take them.
I think that's incredible because we stereotype ourselves.
We do.
Now here comes the big problem of self-accusation.
Can I pause?
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
Okay.
We're live on my page, not being helped.
It's okay. Can
You want to keep going?
Can you put it over there?
Yeah, I'll put it over there.
Yeah, just put it.
Okay.
Keep going.
But
Okay, it's all right.
It will go to being health page
Yeah.
eventually.
So those of you who think you're watching at 11, you are not. You will be watching later.
Yes.
you'll be
It's
watching
okay. We'll
later.
keep
Yes.
going. Yeah.
Well,
It's
okay.
okay.
Sorry to interrupt you
Oh,
like
well, you
that.
know what? We're not going to limit you to that mistake.
Yeah.
We know that. The
Well, I
next
kept
time
looking
you
at-
probably will be do it better.
And I thought, something's not right here
Yeah, I
because
know.
there was 4 people watching.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Yeah. We're good.
Yeah, it's gonna come back on.
Yeah. So
All right.
anyway, so we're fine. We're going to be good.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
Well, I was at a place that I wanted to dwell just a moment, and that is the limitations we put on ourselves by stereotyping ourselves. We can live under the shadow of other labels, or other people's labels. We can live under the shadow of people's accusation about our past. We can, but another big issue is when the enemy comes to become our accuser, and we retreat from who we really are, and so that who we are as a gift, who we are as that God wants to develop. God can't even develop us because we won't let ourselves release to be developed because we're holding this record of wrongs against ourselves or this or that. So God's not going to meet you in your fears in your development. He's going to meet you in your faith of development, that you trust there's a living God, knows the future about you, and is able to draw you through your iniquities, draw you through your growth, and form something that's beautiful. It's like a gem being polished slowly, being formed and polished, ready for the great, great presentation before the King. And I just have to say, as I'm hearing this in my heart, is that some of you that are listening
Right.
have been limiting God because you're stereotyping yourself, and that's not faith, that's fear.
Or you're listening to what others have said about you.
Exactly.
Same thing.
At the same time, I'm not saying, be a jack-in-the-box and pop out, but be thoughtful in this, because some of you, God wants to do some great things with you and for others and for yourself, and you won't let Him.
Well, especially when you take it to God, you see the argument. You give Him the argument, like Moses. Well, I can't even speak.
Moses, Jeremiah.
There's an argument.
There's an argument.
Why you can't?
Jeremiah had an argument.
Yeah.
Moses had an argument. But at some point, both Jeremiah and Moses had to flush the argument and had to embrace their calling.
Yeah.
And that's the secret here. Personality profiling will not let you escape.
Right. It
And
limits you.
It limits you.
It just binds you in this little cage.
And even God didn't say to Jeremiah and Moses, I can't use you now. You're too goofy. So there's an element of this that we must release ourselves to God and His mind for us. I saw myself in the Bible long before I started doing what I'm doing today. I saw others that God used, and I learned from them so that I'd have the faith to grow and change myself. So the failures of people in the Bible allowed me to embrace my own failures.
Right. Absolutely.
So that I knew there was a God that loved hindering.
Gave you faith for yourself.
Gave me faith for myself in spite of others' profiling or misprofiling. Even my own battle with my own identity and my own journey, which is always there confronting you. I had to trust God, that if God saved me by His Spirit, the Father, saved me by His Spirit, and I embraced the salvation of Jesus Christ, that He had something in mind that I was well beyond my understanding. And I just needed to join Him in that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't know what it was. I just knew I couldn't stay in the past. I couldn't stay here. I had to pursue faith. And sometimes I didn't understand what faith was. But I knew it involved something that wasn't status quo.
Well, also too, in the midst of this conversation here, I think it's really important to remember that a man's gift will make room for it.
Yes.
So it's like, just because, you do recognize you have gifts, that you have to also wait on God to be able to make that place, a parent, instead of like, because what I don't want to happen is like, we definitely don't want you to stay in this box, but at the same time, like you said, I don't want you to be a jack in the box either. It's like you have to really be really thoughtful about, okay, well, I think I have this gifting, so what do I do with this? Like, where do I go with this? Oftentimes people will come up to me, not in our local fellowship, but especially when we're doing conferences, and they'll say things like, I think I have the gift of blah, 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 or I think I have the calling of blah, blah, blah. And I thought, okay, that's great. What are you doing? Well, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, that's where you need to go back to your leadership, if you're in a church, which I hope you are, but you need to be able to be in communication. I think here it's a little different because we have the open mic at our church services, so we're able to watch and be able to partake of the people's giftings pretty easily, I think.
Other places, I'm thinking about what you're saying. I'm not sure going to your leadership of your local church is a safe place to think about talking about your gifts.
But where else would you go?
The reason I say that, because if those gifts aren't being allowed to manifest to the body in that local church, why would you think you'd be any different than the exclusion? Because everybody's being stereotyped. Only the leadership has the ability to hear God, and that's the way it is. That's an unfortunate part of the failure of Christianity, to develop the body. And one of the things about in our New Testament style of church that we have here at Hope of the Generations, we do have that earnest section, we do have that open mic section, so that there can be a place of release.
Absolutely.
And then there's a place of development, a place of growth. And I mean, even in your journey, David, that open mic has been as inspiration has come to you over the years. From time to time, you've got up and shared things that were of God.
Yep.
At the moment, you weren't really thinking it was of God.
No.
You were just thinking this was an inspiration of thought from Scripture and so on that fit right into the theme. And then you were released to be able to move ahead with this.
Absolutely.
And that's how you grew. I was thinking about my own journey. I'm considered to be, by some, a professional speaker. Well, I started when I was young, in the 5th grade, in the LTL speaking contest. That's a ladies' temperance union.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Way back in the 40s.
I read about that in books.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm his wife.
The Ladies Temperance League would put on these contests sponsored by the Ladies Temperance League. And I started competing in the 5th grade in public speaking. I went on to be lead actor, and as a male lead actor in the senior play, went into college and in forensic activity, which is acting, and was an actor in college. And then while in college, those that were around me recognized I had a good voice in acting, and they suggested that I go down that I produce a 2-hour show for the local radio station on college life, because they were asking for it, and they thought I could do a good job as a freshman. Well, that's a pretty big honor for a freshman to be asked to represent the college. And I produced a 2-hour show on college life and interviews and so on. Well, the local radio station liked my voice. They asked me to do some part-time work. And as a pre-med student, I went through that. Eventually, I dropped out of college after 2 years and went into radio.
Because you had such a good voice.
And I had such a good voice. In fact, it was so good that one day I was on the air, and the owner of a radio station 18 miles away was checking out this radio station, heard me, loved my voice, and called me and said, I want you to do some work for me. And I went and did some work for him. And as I took down this journey, I had 5 years of experience professionally, all the way to a 50,000 watt FM station. From 1,000 watt to a 2,000 watt to a 5,000 watt to a 10,000 watt. And in 5 years, I went right up the ladder in public speaking. Did shows, did talk shows, did everything. And I wasn't saved in those days. Then 20 years later, I got saved. And after I got saved, I was in a church that was starting an FM station, Christian FM station in a major market. Guess who had 5 years of radio experience professionally from their time? So guess who was asked to begin to do DJ work on the new FM station in a major city? And for 5 years, part-time now, I worked in this radio station in the area, and I was a radio personality challenging a city. Why do you believe what you believe? And I spent 5 years of playing music, apologetics, teaching, doing all kinds of things. And there gave me the experience of apologetics. And in today, I'm very skillful in apologetics because I have the experience. I have 10 years of experience professionally behind a microphone, both secular and Christian. And so God took this and he kept, and I didn't know I was being trained by God to represent him, to speak. Mm-hmm. But here I am today, and I represent God through how? Thought and speech.
Yep.
By his Spirit. Isn't that amazing? For my whole life has been that way. And even when I ended up business, guess what I was doing in business? Other than running restaurants and running different things and learning how to run a business and public and how to deal with the public, I ended up in sales and marketing. Of course I'd be in sales and marketing. I always been telling a story about something you might need to know.
Well, as you were talking, this is good. As you were telling that story, it's really, because you talked about, you didn't know this, nobody knew this, but God had all this orchestrated for your training, and, the kind of platform you had, in Christian radio to develop teaching and apologetics. I don't know. I mean, you're supposed to be an elder to do that, but you weren't anything then. You were just a sheep, right? Is that correct?
Well,
on the radio.
On the radio.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, that's all I was.
So, but God gave you that platform,
right?
As that outlet to develop, and that led to other things for you.
Right.
Whereas if you didn't have that outlet,
right,
what would have happened? Who knows?
Well, listen to this. While I was on the air, and I'd come down to just Saturdays and Sundays, I was on the air, and I got a call one day from the eldership of a church about an hour away. They would listen to me and liked my voice and liked how I thought. And they were having difficulties in their organization, in their government of this church, and they asked me to come down and counsel with the elders and the pastor. I wasn't an elder myself, but they saw something in me that ignited. So I went down and told them what I thought, listened to them, gave them a couple books that I suggested they read on church government, and went down. And about a month later, I got a call from one of the elders, will you come down and preach Sunday morning? And I said, why? Well, the pastor has resigned. I went down 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and guess what happened? I ended up pastoring my first church. And that led me into the ability to bring about, and people would come from 2 hours we do Sunday night healing services. They would start at 6, sometimes at 2 in the morning. And people would drive 2 hours one way just to come to these teachings and these meetings. And from there we'd begin to develop, and God began to use this understanding of the works of the devil and how he wanted to heal his people. And that has produced everything we are today. So you just never know.
You just never know.
Yeah.
You just never know. Well, there's I kind of want to go over one of these tests here.
Oh.
I just want to
have a test?
I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Just get our thoughts.
This test was developed by 2 very well-known Christian psychologists.
Okay.
Christian psychologist.
Yes.
Just mute.
Mute me quick.
Mute.
You recognize the names if I said them. I'm not going to.
Okay.
Basically, they're breaking people, every human, into 4 personality groups. And you fall into these. And here's the names. You're either a lion, an otter, a golden retriever, or a beaver. Let me read.
Yes. Read. I got my mute button right. I got it. He's got a mute button right here.
Lion. So if you took this test and it's concluded that you're a lion, Here are your strengths: visionary, practical, productive, strong-willed, independent, decisive, and a leader.
Type A personality. Mental defect.
Mute.
Here are your weaknesses. Those were the strengths.
Those are the strengths.
These are the weaknesses.
Oh, you mean I've got a mental disorder and there's worse?
Well, mute.
My success is a mental disorder and then there's a fallout that goes lower. Oh my, I got to hear this.
Weaknesses.
I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if
We can
David's-
do this.
Cold, domineering, unemotional, self-sufficient, unforgiving, sarcastic, and cruel.
That's a lovely, lovely thing, isn't it?
So you're
Wait a
gonna.
minute. The line of Judah wasn't that way.
I was going to say,
The line of Judah wasn't that way. That's
you're
true.
going to say, he is alive.
So this is the lions are the visionaries, but unfortunately they are unemotional,
And cold.
unforgiving, and cold.
How can you be a visionary and be cold? I don't
not
get
sure.
that.
Well, if you're running a foundry,
Okay, just so keep moving.
forming things out of stone.
Otter.
Otter.
This is my wife's favorite animal.
Listen,
Otter.
Is this utterly ridiculous?
It could be.
Could be. Strengths: outgoing, responsive, warm, friendly, talkative, enthusiastic, and compassionate.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's good. Weaknesses: undisciplined, unproductive, exaggerates, egocentric, and unstable.
Oh my gosh. And they're putting people in these categories.
These are
huh?
our leaders.
Yeah.
This is anybody.
Anybody.
Oh, anybody.
I took one of these.
You didn't.
Are you going to tell us which one you were?
Way
you don't
back. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Here's what I do remember. In the group I was in that took this, 90% were devastated with what they were, with what animal they
That's
were.
so sad.
They were.
They thought they were something else.
They're like, really? That?
Yeah.
How come nobody told me?
Yeah, exactly. How
God said,
to get this far in life.
And God said, let us make man in our animal image.
Yes.
Oh, this has
serious?
another. Okay, I can't even pronounce it. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Golden Retriever.
Lovely.
These are great dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
With or without fleas.
They're good dogs. They just have critters. It's okay.
We all do.
Mute me quick.
Yes.
Strengths: calm, easygoing, dependable, quiet, objective, diplomatic, and humorous.
Okay.
Weaknesses: selfish, stingy, procrastinator, unmotivated, indecisive, fearful, worrier. I thought they were easygoing.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Maybe there's something we're missing.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
All three of these, this plus and minus, everyone is a form of double-mindedness.
It is. Like they're really strong
Listen,
here, but then they're
listen.
I'm here, I'm
double-minded here.
listening.
And the double-minded animal is unstable in all his ways.
Just look at squirrels.
Look at squirrels. That's what they call them, squirrely.
Yeah.
I gotta keep going.
Okay,
Keep going.
This is a beaver.
Oh no. He's laughing already.
That's not what I'm laughing at. I'm laughing at what they're saying
Oh,
about
okay.
the conclusion here. All right. Analytical, self-disciplined, industrious, organized, aesthetic. Is that aesthetic? Is that?
I think that like
Aesthetic?
aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
Like
Aesthetic.
they like to things to look good.
Yeah,
Aesthetical.
okay.
Yeah.
And sacrificing. Weaknesses: moody, self-centered, touchy, negative, unsociable, critical, and revengeful.
Ooh. Got some bitterness on it.
Double-minded.
So now this I got these off of blogs. I'm not saying that this is the official test
Right.
came from here.
Wait,
But I want to read how they process this now, because here's what they say. Often you'll find that people have a primary character type and a secondary. So you can major in being a retriever and minor in being an otter or something like that. Okay.
Double-mindedness.
Okay.
So it says, take a look at yourself. Which one is your primary? Which one's your secondary? Some naturally go together and make for a wonderful set of strengths. Also be sensitive to the weaknesses in yourself and others. But this is what I like.
Can I
Just
say
wait, no,
something?
wait, I want to hear what it says.
I gotta say something.
Let me say this.
You go ahead.
Next time I'll post how to better understand the perceived needs of these temperaments and how to best communicate them. Until then, enjoy animal watching.
Are you serious? Made in his image, right?
I just think that they're so contradictory. And then the other thing is like, I don't think how that anybody could fall into one of those categories, because I heard things about myself, both sides, the weaknesses and the strengths, that not more than one. I think I'm all those at different times.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they could just actually say, or even pick two that you are.
But this is a form of astrology.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Secondly,
You talk about that in there.
Secondly, it's offensive to a living God who created us. Animals were created for our pleasure, not to be the example of who we are. Although I will say I've seen some examples of animals that conform to the image of their sinning owners.
They probably just picked those labels just to name team lion, team whatever.
No, they didn't. I had somebody come to our program here a few years ago in their church,
Yes.
big mega church.
Yeah.
They were holding a seminar every week to help people understand who they were as an animal. And it was promoted by the church.
Yeah.
And people come to find out so that everybody could relate to each other better. Because you know that you're a bear, you're a lion, you're a wolf, and there was more than just 4 animals. There was a lot of animals. And so the whole thing is ridiculous.
I'm just confused.
Well, these things, they do match the animal temperament. A lion is king of the jungle.
Right.
Otters are very playful.
Yeah.
Golden retrievers are very stable,
Right. Right.
And
That's
beavers,
true. That is true.
beavers are smart as they come
Yes.
in the animal kingdom.
That is
so
a
they
good
are.
point. That is
Beavers
a good point.
also destroy our timber.
Actually, he would say it's his timber.
It's his timber.
Yeah, it's his livelihood. He has to. Yeah. So anyway, we're not
He's
gonna
an
go there.
original settler.
Wow. I just, I have to say that, getting back on track here, guys, I have to say that when I was first, before we started filming, I was approached with this, and it wasn't you, David, it was Adrian. And I said, I had no idea what she was talking about. I says, what is this? I don't even know what it is. So I must be really out of the loop, because I had never heard of this. I've heard of other things, but I've never heard of that.
One of the things you get into Jungian psychology, which most psychology is based on Jungian thinking, even Christian, is based on Jungian, which is the inner child, the inner person, coming in contact. I got the big red book by Carl Jung in my files, the original one with all the Mandelas and all their other stuff, and it was his conversations with his soul, which was actually his conversation with evil spirits or spirit guides. But he said this is in my inner being. One of the main line of Jungian psychotherapy is that you must come in contact with the archetypes and dark shadows. There's your profiling. You must come in contact with the archetypes and dark shadows of your ancestral darkness, so that you may understand your inner evil nature better, so that you don't have a better day by becoming free of that nature, but you have a better day because you're able to live according to knowledge better with that nature. So it's a form of cohabitation.
I have a question. I have a question about these tests, because I think it's an important question. Now, as a believer, of course, way before I got saved, I read my horoscopes and you did stuff like that, and of course repented for that after I became a believer, understood that it was not of God. How is this any different? I'm just saying that if I've allowed someone to label me as one of these critters over here, how is that different than being labeled by a zodiac sign? So I'm asking the question basically, should I be repenting if I ever took one of these tests and allowed somebody to label me?
Yeah, as you would, because you're taking information from the devil.
Yeah.
I want to say this to you as clearly as I can say it. I'm a son of God, and I'm not an animal. Now, here's the problem. Most of us come through the teachings of modern men in our educational system, especially when you get into zoology. In zoology, it says we're all animals. Evolution is taught as an evolutionary process of animals. We are called a mammal in science. We're never considered to be a spirit being in science, because science doesn't believe anything it cannot see. So it can only look at what they can see. So they say you are an evolved animal, is what they teach in evolution. You are an evolved animal. So to better understand who you are as an animal, you must come in contact with your animal nature. I don't have an animal nature. I have the mind of Christ, and he's not an animal.
Wow.
And so I have to tell you this. Don't you dare ever call my wife a beaver.
No, you'll get cold cocked. For sure. I just know that when I heard some of those pluses and minuses of those groupings, it's like I heard like one was compassionate, like that might have been the golden retriever. I don't remember which one it was, but and maybe easygoing or whatever. But the lion was like really aggressive or whatever. It's like, as a believer, I don't know why you can't be both at the right times.
Well, who I was thinking about was King David. I mean, the guy was a warrior.
Yes.
Actually, I forget the circumstances, but God said you have too much bloodshed on your hands for him to do a certain thing.
Build the temple.
To build the temple, yeah.
Did say that.
But at the same time, he didn't fit that warrior stereotype in that he would dance freely before the Lord and could have some fun and enjoy God, and he wasn't always so serious all the time and geared up for battle. I mean, we people fall into all these things, but he could what that people call that? They call it an enigma.
An enigma.
Well, great.
Because they can't put their finger on that. They're like, I didn't think you would think like that or say something like that. I didn't think you would even like that type of music, being the person you are over here.
Right, that's
true.
true.
Who's to say that?
Yeah, who is to say that? So I guess we're all enigmas.
I don't know if that's a good word or not, but that's the word I know people would say.
I think it's a good word for secular world. I mean, we are, aren't we?
Peculiar.
Yeah, peculiar.
No.
That's the word. Yeah.
Now, what really happens is this.
Okay.
Now, I'm saying this with tongue in cheek.
Okay, so this is a ha-ha.
Sometimes people think that they are the image of God, and everyone around them is defective. So they're stereotyping everybody around their perceived perfectedness of conclusion, and thereby there's where the strife comes from, because they don't have patience for us incompetent animals surrounding them.
Oh, mute.
So we've talked about the animal testing, about...
Well, I mean, I did it as a tongue-in-cheek, I said.
Yeah.
But sometimes people judge us based on what they think.
No animals were harmed in this
No animals were harmed,
presentation.
yes, thank you. Well, and so we were talking about these tests, these personality tests. We got about 10 minutes because I also want to go back to some of the other labels we may have picked up in life. It could have been something a parent said, a teacher said. These things can be very binding. I know I had a friend in college who had a high school counselor tell him, and this is not uncommon, tell him that he just was not college material. And he went through college with a chip on his shoulder to prove her wrong.
Ooh.
That was his motivation. Now, he did well,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if the motivation
Yeah.
was the right motivation.
Probably. It
It wasn't
wasn't.
motivation. Maybe he got delivered.
Maybe,
Do what now?
Maybe.
Maybe he got delivered from something.
Well, he
that
said,
Maybe he did,
Well,
yeah.
but he said he had a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah,
but
I
don't think that's the same thing.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe,
Yeah, I don't know either.
maybe that could have fueled him in a right way. I'm not sure. But anyway, we get these labels sometimes, and many people live under it. I can't do this. I can't do that. And it comes out of somebody saying something about them, even when they were young.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of it happens. That's one of the foundations for diabetes 1. Is things that are said to a child when they're young that is derogatory to who they are in their future. And I won't get into any more than that, except sometimes we're the product of even our own family tree, our own parents even, our relatives around us. It's sad. Also, we stereotype people based on economic status. We base them on race. There are so many little boxes we put people in that no wonder we have all these issues.
I was I've just been pondering what you were saying here. For in my own life, it's like, and others I've seen as well, is that, I was labeled with some pretty awful things as a young woman, especially, and a child. And I don't even want to repeat them. But I think what happened is you begin to believe those words that are true, that they're true. And so what ends up happening is when you agree with those negative statements concerning you, it opens the door for the enemy to fulfill them.
It does.
And so then you think, see, I really am that way. That's why this is all happening to me, because they were right? That and until you really till I was born again, until I started, understanding it and apprehending what the Word of God said about me, apart from that stuff, that's when I went, wait a minute, I believed something that someone put on me, or that the enemy fulfilled. I don't have to live like that. But I had to actually recognize that's what was happening. I was agreeing with the enemy's kingdom, so it allowed the things that was spoken against me or to me to come to pass.
So that creates a type of fear.
Absolutely.
And in fear, there's no faith.
Yeah.
Now, over the years, I have a statement that I want to make now, is that fear and faith are equal in this dimension. Both project into the future, and both demand to be fulfilled. According to your faith, so be it unto you. But listen to this. According to your fears, so be it unto you.
Yes.
So sometimes it's been stereotyped. It produces a fear, and the people conform to the image of failure. And it's there in society. It's there in the church.
I just know that I felt like a hamster in a cage, running on that wheel.
Right.
I just couldn't get out of it. I couldn't, on my own, I could not.
But at the same time, in the midst of your journey, you were class president 3 or 4 years.
I know I was. And if I wasn't the president, I was definitely in the government and I was the least that should have been sitting there.
But in spite of all you're saying, there were those around you that respected you and your leadership. No wonder you're CEO today and a pastor.
Go figure. I mean, we're talking about training.
That's the journey.
I mean, but it's true.
But so within us is something that God saw from the foundation of the world. That's what He's trying to recover. The Father's trying to recover us. And I say this often now, is that the great, great beauty and the great power of the cross is that because of Jesus, the Father's now able to reclaim what He lost in mankind in the tragedy of the Garden of Eden. Would you let Him reclaim you?
Yeah, that's a good.
Rather than hang out in the shadow of the failure of Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
Isn't that
throw
the
off
bottom
those
line?
labels. Throw them off. Yeah.
Throw them off.
Throw them off.
So Eve's the mother of all. Eve's the mother of us all.
Yep.
Have a good day, Mom.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Well, we've talked about some things.
We certainly have.
Not sure what y'all think about it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, this book here, I read this book about 2 weeks ago. This one Saturday I was thumbing through my bookshelf and just needed something to do. And I think it was raining outside, and it didn't look like this. It's that old saddle stitched one.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I got free of some things.
Cool.
Going through it, seeing some areas that I was still, you become one with things. You've been labeled, or you've listened to the voice of the enemy, and you just think, well, yeah, that's what I am. But not just deep on the inside, you don't even realize you're doing it at times.
It's very true.
So it really was very helpful.
Kind of jarred you.
It jarred me out of it.
In a good way, yeah.
Helped me separate myself from it. So there's a lot of the teaching on separation is weaved in here. Teaching on astrology and Jungian psychology is in here as well. So highly recommend getting this book, Personality Misprofiles.
Now let me ask you a question, just doing a little shop talk.
Yep.
Do we still have it on audio, or is it just in the book?
Just in the book form. Just in the book form.
Well, you certainly want to get it.
Yeah, you do.
It might jar you, in a good way.
Well, it's like this. You know what this is like? It's like taking a drive, and this happens to be the right road to take to think about your journey, because it's going to help you think.
Yeah.
Not accuse you. This book is not designed to accuse you or to
Not at all.
It doesn't accuse you.
It's designed to release you from the shadow of whatever.
And and I know that all of you out there are really, really trying to apprehend truth and trying to really let God change you, working with Him. And sometimes we just don't recognize we just got in a rut we didn't know we were in. And so maybe this will just be just the thing that you need to go, I didn't see that.
Every one of us has a right to change in Jesus' name.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's the gospel.
It is.
That's the bottom line.
Bottom line.
Okay.
You got anything else you want to say in closing?
No, I think we started that nicely.
We started nicely. We'll answer your questions as they come.
Yes, we will.
So, We love you. God bless. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend, okay?
God bless you.